Hello there, gentlemen.
Hello.
Guys.
How y'all doing this fine evening? It's been a long weekend.
Oh, doing all right. Yeah. It's been a long weekend. For sure. I'll get
So,
the camera set up here.
all right. So we were over the weekend, we were discussing a lot, and we realized that we had, by the time we were all done with all of our notes, we had like 6 pages of notes. So, in the interest of this stream not turning into a hostage situation, we decided to split it across 2 streams. So, tonight we're going to focus a little more on the history. We'll do a little more descriptions and definitions. And, you know, we have been informed by people we trust and respect that our content is very dry. Well,
We like it like that, don't we?
we do. So why don't you go ahead, pull up your favorite drink, because we have a smorgasbord of dry on tap for y'all tonight.
Yeah, get yourself a tall glass of water.
Oh yeah.
So we got some housekeeping to deal with. So I'll try and do that.
Okay.
Our last stream created a bit of a stir. We had no idea when we did it. It wasn't our intention. And, then I said, yeah, I kind of stirred up a hornet's nest. I didn't want to do that, but okay, well, that actually escalated it. Just saying that. But let me make a couple of corrections here. First of all, in our last stream, we were talking. Plutarch asked me a question about I don't know, something. Do people who look this way or anti-red pill? I think it was. Are they feminist? And I just used 2 examples. I was thoughtfully thinking about that, and I said, no, Andrew Wilson and Grid 1 are not feminists. I did not mention Glenn Lawrence. I was just using examples. I wasn't doing an exhaustive list. And by not mentioning him, I didn't mean to imply that he was a feminist. The second thing, I said at the beginning of our stream that Glenn was wrong. Well, that was a poor choice of words. He was wrong on maybe something very trivial. My point was that Glenn has said that the descriptions in the red pill are not the problem, and it's the prescriptions. And I don't think anybody has really thought, well, okay, I agree with that the prescriptions are a problem, promiscuity and anti-Christian. But we kind of addressed that. What I was trying to get at is actually let's explore the idea, because I think people are scared of the descriptions. So the trivial thing that Glenn was wrong about is and I'm applying here, only the prescriptions that are wrong. People are fine with the descriptions. Now, let me clarify. I have more common ground with Glenn than any disagreement. And it's probably something he hasn't thought about. Oh, how could people be opposed to the descriptions? Hardly anybody has thought about that. So, it led into something much more than it should have been. And I apologize to Glenn for my poor choice of words.
All right. I think that covers the housekeeping for the evening. So, what are we talking about tonight, boys?
Sophistry. Sophistry.
Okay, Nick, we know
It's
you
not
know.
it's not really the love of wisdom, though. It's not philosophy. It's rather the opposite. It's a play on words.
Okay. Enlighten us.
So sophistry is actually contrary to philosophy. It goes back in history with Socrates and the Sophists, which is another word he used for what you could call the rhetoricians, those who were crafty with their words and language, who would try to debunk philosophy, debunk logical arguments with faulty arguments, fallacies, essentially. That about cover it?
Yeah, that does about cover it.
So they're trying to refute a thoughtful argument, possibly using logic and reason, with rhetoric and you know, dealing with something minor or using a lot of words. Maybe word salad. That could be an example of sophistry.
Well, okay,
Am I seeing?
Steve.
Do you agree? I mean,
Uh,
I'm not a philosopher, so I'm just
uh,
trying to understand this like everyone else.
Neither am I, but there are so Isocrates was one of the critics of the Sophists, and he actually talks about the one of the things that
Yes, now
they
I hear
so
you.
it's sorry, I had to read through. It's point number 3. Uh, they claim to teach invaluable virtues and the wonderful art of oratory, right? But the problem is that the Sophists were, and if I understand my Plato right, and it has been a very long time since I have read a lot of Plato, they started to put the teaching of rhetoric, and of course the teaching was charged for. They were paid for this very well. Um, they started to put the teaching of rhetoric over the application of logic to that rhetoric. It no longer mattered that what you were saying was logically consistent. It only mattered that you said it in such a way that people connected with it and accepted it. So is that what you're trying to get at with word salad there?
I think so. First of all, let's not assume that everybody knows what rhetoric is. It's
Yeah,
being
there's
able
me
to
again.
speak well. I mean, we're not educated in all these things in high school anymore.
True.
So rhetoric is the ability to get up in front of a group of people and use words, give a speech to sway the audience to win a debate, an argument, a discussion uh, by your command of word usage. And yeah, I guess that's what I mean. Okay, you can put together a word salad of eloquent words, big, long words, and you try to take the high moral ground and demonstrate to everybody else that I'm so fucking smart that you should side with me. Well, another way that I look at it is rhetoric used by the sophists is the art of learning how to battle with bullshit.
Yep. Now we made it past 8 minutes.
Yeah, we have to put a clock on Steve here because we got to watch him.
Oh, so so is it bull crap that sounds good?
Well, is it bullshit that sounds good, or is it bullshit that is designed to make you buy into whatever it is they're selling? I don't know. Is there a difference?
Well, people can be swayed by what sounds good. Generally, the masses aren't taught or traditionally taught how to think critically through arguments. And so you can use language in a certain way to try to produce a certain reaction in your audience aimed at achieving a certain result. So
Okay.
like in a courtroom, you could assault someone's character and get the audience to sort of buy in. Yeah, this is a terrible person. It doesn't mean it's necessarily true, but you can make the person seem like he's this degenerate SOB. This terrible person. And therefore they'll start buying into that view, and it'll give them a colored lens by which they'll view the information being presented, and they will overlook things, and sometimes justice is miscarried.
Yeah, you know what came to mind? Have you ever watched the English Parliament when they're getting up and they each get their time and they say some things and they are just so eloquent at their takedowns of the opposition, at artful words to just, skewer the guy. Then the next guy gets back up and he has a good retort. There is an art to this, an art to
Mhm.
the rhetoric. And I think the English Parliament, if you've ever watched any of their proceedings, I admire those guys for their abilities.
Steve,
Now,
you
rhetoric isn't necessarily wrong in and of itself, but it can be used for evil purpose.
okay? So if rhetoric is a tool,
Right?
it can be used to sway people to do good things or do bad things. That's what
Right.
you're saying.
It should be tied with
Yeah,
the proper logos, logic, proper
but
argumentation.
that's on the person using it.
Yeah. It's assuming that they're an
He,
ethical person, having an
it,
ethos as well.
oh, okay. Here's a revelation: immoral people will use rhetoric for self-serving aims.
Yeah, imagine that.
A moral person can use rhetoric for societal or altruistic, which means aims that are for the benefit of not himself, maybe himself, but not even necessarily himself, but for society or for the benefit of others. You can use rhetoric to assist others in the support and pursuit of justice, or you can use rhetoric in the pursuit of injustice.
Hmm. Right. So like in the classical preaching manuals, not like the modern one, they insisted on three things. You had the logos, the logic, the meaning, the ethos, the moralism, and you had the pathos. You could call that linked with rhetoric.
So you're describing how a pastor should structure a sermon right?
Well, how he should use his sermon should be, he should use rhetoric. It should be moral, and he should be moral within himself as well, but also that it should be logical. The meaning should be expressed.
Well, there's a difference in how these are used in different Christian groups or class. I don't know what the word is. I mean, you kind of see Catholic priests. They have a certain they have a homily, 15 minutes at the most. It's kind of uplifting, can be challenging. It's factual, it's based on scripture, but it's a short message, okay? Presbyterians use more scripture, but okay, and I'm not that familiar, so let me know if I'm wrong. But it's more of a using logic and reason and explaining in teaching.
Yeah.
I
And
think
illustrating.
Lutherans are kind of the same, illustrating.
Yeah.
But you get on the evangelical side, in some churches, and I'm not saying good, bad. There is injection of emotion and hyping up the people and getting them to feel all spiritual and feel the Holy Spirit. And uh, is that emotionals in any of those three areas that you mentioned, Nick?
No. I might
So
be more of a
go ahead.
might be leaning towards the last, the pathos. But
Okay, so
Okay, well, maybe it's in there.
they're doing too much
But
pathos.
yeah.
Okay. So Steve, it sounds like you were describing mega churches, by the way. I'm just thinking of all these pastors who get up in there and they get emotional and you can see them sweating and they're yelling into their microphones and they've got the emotional control up and down. Like when you hear this, you can, if you're paying attention not to the content that they're speaking, but to how they're delivering it, you can hear how they are using their voice as an instrument of emotional manipulation. They go up and down in pitch. They speed up and they slow down, right? And these are all tools that are designed to connect with a person emotionally. And
not isn't that the same thing that's done in a movie in the background with the music that's playing?
Yeah.
They bring you
yep.
through this emotional roller coaster. Oh, your sad music. Oh, I have to pay attention now. What's going to happen? And then, oh, wow, that's great. Yeah. And it's entertainment, but it's bringing you through that emotions. And I think the old time preachers and seminaries, well, they knew all this stuff. But as Nick said, there are three elements here. And I think they taught people to find a balance. And I think in like the mega churches, I don't think they're using obviously they're not using the same balance or the same mix of these things as is found in the more traditional mainstream or Catholic or Orthodox.
Well,
Am I being fair here?
no, you are. But I would also say that this doesn't necessarily have to speak to the church. I'm thinking about, so I spent all weekend reviewing video and for the part 2 next week, and Tim Pool dropped an absolute gem on us this on Friday. I told everyone on Wednesday that I got some Daily Wire clips, but Tim Pool dropped a gem on us. And if you just listen through how he talks, I'm not saying this is good or bad, and I'm not sitting here trying to slam Tim Pool. Don't get me wrong, but Tim Pool does the same thing. Voice goes up and down, the tone changes, the speed changes when he's getting angry, and as everyone who knows Tim, he does get animated. So the church suffers from imbalance here, but in my view, social media, all of it, encourages this. Social media asks you to think emotionally first. They don't you won't come back to the social media platforms if you're not emotionally engaged, and they know that. I see Nick's messing around with stuff down there.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
hitting
that's
buttons.
very true. And as our attention span has gotten shorter, we started with sound bites in the media, and then with social media. Well, then in TV and commercials, they needed to keep you engaged through the commercial so you come back. But they also want you to listen to the commercial. So 30 seconds, sound bite, you got to spike emotions and create some memory there. And then the shows are competing to keep people engaged because you don't want them channel surfing someplace else. And now with YouTube, what's really popular? YouTube Shorts.
60 seconds, y'all.
You got 60 seconds to say your thing. And, it's like a constant dopamine stream. It's like the rat in the, what is it, the spinner box or Skinner box that has to press the lever to get,
Oh, to get
the
the treat.
reward. Yeah, well, I mean, it's an analogy that we are taught or trained, I should say, through our modern world to be looking for these short-term hits of information. You can't tell me something in 60 seconds. Oh, there's a rabbit.
So, Steve, is that why we
Squirrel.
do these long streams with these dry streams where we talk rationally about stuff? Hey, maybe we're doing a little too much on the logos. That's a potentially fair charge.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how we like it. Yeah, but that's how we like
I
it.
mean, hey, there's different people are going to have a different mix of these. And there's a place for streams like ours. Because this is how my brain works. Not too many people gravitate to what we're doing. That's
We're
fine.
okay. We're
I
okay with
don't
that.
respect that.
Yeah.
But there are people out there who, oh yeah, I want to just put something on and think about it. And okay, there are tasks you do. Okay, I drive a truck, a semi truck. Okay, and there's lots of people who have jobs like that. Okay, I have to pay attention to this, drive down the road, and but I gotta occupy my brain. I can't be clicking on shorts. Let me put on a good 2-hour stream, and they'll give me
Yeah.
something to think about and engage with. Then when it's over, I got some time to think about it. Uh, it works for me. That's why I like doing this.
Okay,
Yeah, I
Steve.
put on podcasts. I do audiobooks, like when I go work out or when I'm doing my walks or I'm on a long drive. I'm on this I think it's like almost 30 hours worth for just the first volume of Shelby Foote's first volume on the Civil War.
You're
Lots of
you're
time.
you're still going with the Civil War
Oh
stuff, huh?
yeah, oh yeah, it's
Hey,
entertaining. Yeah, for
you know
me.
what? I listened to Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Gulag
Ooh,
Archipelago
Ooh,
on
okay.
audio. Would I ever have taken the time to read that book?
Maybe not.
it's
Probably not.
it's not an easy book to read.
But, okay, I'm captive here. I'm listening. And, it was, I don't know how many hours I listened to it. But man, did I learn a lot from that book. And
Yeah,
analogies come up. And it's such works like that. If you can get them on audio, and then when you're a captive audience, if you can listen to those, man, you actually now can talk intelligently about
yeah,
a lot more things than you could have before.
Okay, Steve. So then I think what we're kind of getting at here is, at least in terms of what we're trying to do, the YouTube shorts are kind of trying to tell you what to think. They're very quick. They're trying to get an emotional reaction out you. Here, think this way. The long form stuff and the stuff that we like to listen to here is not so much trying to get you to think a certain way, but to give you some things to think about.
And you know what?
So,
Lots of people disagree, and we don't always agree amongst each other. But we always like the task of thinking through each other's arguments. And a lot of times we take away at least something, that we hadn't thought about before from another person. So,
right. And this is the difference between sophistry and philosophy. I'm not going to call ourselves philosophers because we're not formally trained in that, but this is the difference that when we look at the history of the sophist versus the philosophers. The philosophers could disagree with each other, but they were working together to build better arguments, to build better logos. The sophists were not. They were trying to improve their oratory skills, which is not totally useful or not totally useless, but it's not complete.
Well,
but it works
yeah,
great in a mass media society that's breaking up by commercial breaks and advertising.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. If you just use the example of Nick and I. Nick started Catholic, and he converted, and then he became a Presbyterian pastor, became ordained in the Orthodox Presbyterian Church. I started out as an evangelical, was born into that. Then I converted to Roman Catholicism. So we're kind of opposite there, opposite at the end, and have different views and have decided what we're going to believe. And so we don't agree on a lot of things, right, Nick?
No, but the answer to the argument is you're just a papist. You're a bloody papist, and what am I? What am I, Steve? Come on.
I don't know.
Schismatic. Heretic.
Heretic. No.
There you go. Okay. Hey, that solves the. Hey guys, that rhetoric solved the problem.
But the beauty of this is we have different outlooks. So I'll bring up a theme, like of when we talked about guilt and repentance, and I say, okay, here's how the Catholics do it. And okay, now how do the Presbyterians address the same thing? Because it's not, oh, you got to do it my way. I think you should, but that's not my basis. It's like, here's a thing. How do you guys look at this thing? We disagree kind of on the approach, but there is something common here. So let's explore that. And I learned much from Nick, from his viewpoint, and I want to see how similar it is to mine. And I'm also testing what I believe against what I learned from him.
But it's fun.
I don't think I'm getting
I enjoy doing that.
Well, yes, Nick, we enjoy doing that. But I think we need to be mindful of the fact that most people do not enjoy testing their priors.
Oh,
you're probably right there.
Yeah.
I think that was part of our problem in our last stream. We assumed that others would take what we said in the way we deal with each other, and I know this. Most other people don't look at the world with the same mental processes that I look at the world. And it's kind of stupid of me to assume that they should.
It's stupid of all of us.
Yeah, I always liked arguing with the theological professors and the philosophy teachers. They liked it too, though.
Yeah, why else did they go to the philosophy departments? I mean, isn't you have to? Don't you have to enjoy argumentation?
It's fun. You don't always agree, but sometimes, they'll actually point out a flaw in something you hadn't thought about before. You can point out a flaw and they hadn't thought about before, and you go back to your study and try to figure out where the flaw is. And there's another. another way to arrive at it, or was it was somewhere in the logical process did something break down or whatnot? So
Well, okay, but
So
Nick, what you're describing here is the art of really taking sophistry and turning it into a consistent philosophy. And I think that's the problem that we've hit with the sophists on social media and the sophists. Don't even get me started on the TV news. If ever there was an example of sophistry, CNN is it.
yeah.
And they don't do that second part anymore.
Well, no, you also see debates. There's I took this clip. It was debates used to be a lot of people didn't even know what the presidents used to look like, and they would hear debates. They read it in the newspaper articles. Um, but there was I think it was the Nixon Kennedy debate where it was the first televised presidential debate, if I'm not mistaken, where they had it on radio and televised. And on the radio version, there's a decisive winner, and on the TV version, there's a different decisive winner. So I think Kennedy won on the television and Nixon won, if I'm not mistaken, on the radio. Same
That
argument, right?
Yeah, same arguments. I remember this.
Yeah.
And Kennedy won, and they realized that Kennedy won because he was younger. He appeared more virile, for lack of a better term, and Nixon appeared tired. And I think the debate a couple weeks ago kind of took that whole concept to its sort of reductio ad absurdum conclusion.
there was another bigger difference. Kennedy in the presidential debate was calm, cool, collected. Nixon was sweating like a pig, and his face was red. Well, I guess it just proves that adage: never let them see you sweat.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that information can't be conveyed through, observation versus auditory, but the argument itself is unchanged in its data. Let's put it that way.
Well, another thing I've heard is that people who read the transcripts of debates often come to very different conclusions than those who watch or listen to debates.
Huh.
There were posts on Twitter after the most recent debate about some guy said, "Well, I read the debate and the transcript, and it was clear that Biden was the winner." Now, I think there was some editing of the transcript to edit out some of the molasses brain, but
Okay.
to try and get across the point that he was actually trying to make. But hey, it's like, but you can, if you read reading is the most, reading a transcript is the most dispassionate way to engage with a piece of content, because a rhetorician over the radio will be able to do as we described before, where they play with their voice, tone up, tone down, speak faster, speak slower. With audio and video, like in the Kennedy debates, you get the extra visual of Nixon sweating and Kennedy appearing calm and collected. But with the transcript, you get none of that. We lose all the emotional content. And it's actually one of the things that makes communicating by a text the most difficult form of communication we have. But it is in text that you are going to get the most logos out of what you're reading, out of what you're interacting with.
Well, exactly. I was a consultant for a number of years, and my boss, he's a brilliant guy, really difficult. to work for. But he made us write very well. It was hard to learn that, but you would write things and rewrite things. And I learned how to write a letter. I mean, I kind of knew how to do that, but I honed my skills. And so I learned, and I still use this. I'll write something, just stream of thought, get it on paper, get the body down. And then I can move paragraphs around and I can read it and I can say, well, there's too many words here. I need to take out a whole bunch of those to get to the kernel of the idea. And ideally get the letter down to 1 page, maybe a page and a half. But I would only do that the next day. It might take me a couple days, 2 days to send out a letter. No, I'm not working on it constantly, but you come back to it. So when I started my business career, there was no email. And there was like 10 engineers. And every week there would be the circular file that went around from desk to desk, and you'd sign off. That included all the letters that were written that week. There might be 15 letters in there. Well, your letter and the letters the other guys wrote to contractors, to whatever, to find things out. So you would keep up on things. And every letter that I wrote went to the secretary, and she would read it, and she was a very skilled person, and she would know, yeah, you can't say this. This is stupid. You're not going to do that. And she would make sure that when you sent something out, it was coherent and it accomplished the purpose. And communication was a lot slower. You communicated by letters. You got a letter from someone else, and it would take you 2-3 days to respond to that letter. None of this just rattling off a quick email.
Mm.
In a lot of ways, it was so very effective. And most younger people do not have those skills because they have not had to develop those skills to write a decent business letter or communicate properly. It's true of the newspapers. It's not just business letters. It's writing in general. You hone your argument, and you can't really use emotion. You're just trying to get the facts out and reach a reasoned, fair balance, and accomplish your purpose.
Well, I didn't mean to drag us down the whole, what's the best way to communicate. Although you are correct, Steve, that as we have gone with the internet and the internet's improved, first we had email, and now we have, well, gentlemen, we're sitting on one of the most, how do I describe that? One of the fastest ways to communicate with people, right? We've got comments on the side. You leave a comment, one of us will talk to you. So it, at least for us, and part of the reason that we're so dry is that we actually do take the time to sit down, organize our thoughts, come up with a direction that we want to take this. And yes, we miss things. Yes, we, use the wrong language sometimes because doing this stuff live is never easy. And we don't have teleprompters like CNN does. So I think that's, we're I mean, it sounds like we're complaining about it, but we are also part of it. So
Sure we are.
we'll acknowledge that.
And we also, one of us takes the lead in each stream, and they develop some notes, kind of an outline for our program. Okay, and then they share it. Okay, this is where whoever the leader is, this is where I want to go. These are the points I want to develop. and then we follow through this, and we look at that, and then we can pass off the talking to somebody else. And there's points where, hey, anybody, Nick and Plutarch, no, they can disagree with anything in my notes, and I've sent them
Yeah.
out to them a couple days beforehand, so they can reflect through this and say, gee, do I agree with this? No, I'm going to push back in this area, or I'm going to further develop this. It works for us. I don't know anybody else doing it. I'm just fortunate to encounter these two other guys that
Well, I did the same when I
they work the same thing.
when I taught classes either at the church or university when I was a grad student. And when I preached, I always developed a set of notes. Sometimes they're extremely detailed, sometimes they're outlines, but I had the information that I had studied and I had it in a form where I couldn't get too far off track. And sometimes, guys, we go off track, but we have the outline to bring it back.
Yeah, like talking about how to write letters.
Yep.
Steve.
Okay. Well,
Well,
it kind of illustrated the point a little bit, but yeah, it's probably a
yeah.
bit too much.
Well, but the point of why we're so dry, how we structure it, goes back to, again, philosophy versus sophistry. We're not here to tell you what to think. The sophists of the world their goal is to use rhetoric to bring you to a conclusion. They're trying to tell you how to think. Now, it's not really tell you how to think. They're trying to convince you to think their way. The philosophers took a different tack. They said, we're not so much interested in trying to tell you what to think, and we're not so much interested in trying to get you on our side. We are trying to figure out what is the best, rational, logical, what is the most advantageous viewpoint to take, and then we all come to that agreement and we go forward with that, and then someone comes up with a flaw, something we missed, and we all diverge and we scatter, and we all think about the flaw, and then we come back. Philosophy is a constructive argument, a constructive form of argument. It's about building a better foundation, or building, or whatever. Sophistry is more about making sure that you win the argument than making sure that your argument was worth winning.
Well, it's not really winning the argument, it's winning the fight. Doesn't mean you actually won it logically.
Right.
Well, in our stream, week and a half ago, it was misdirection. That's just keep you occupied and distracted, so you'll just act in a predictable manner or do what people want you to, or not realize what else is going on. You got to realize our world is just, you're just so bombarded with information that you really don't have time to think, and you don't process things. The world is forcing you to be reactive all the time. And maybe watching our stream, you can learn how to think. Or, you know what? Maybe the best use of our stream is just put it on when you're ready to go to sleep, because we'll put you to sleep.
We work at it. Like, we try.
We're pretty dry.
Are we picking on the dry thing a lot tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fun.
It's fun. And look,
Sorry.
it is true.
It's harmless.
It's true. It's true. Oh, okay, Steve. I'm looking at your notes here. And playing off what I was talking about before of sophistry versus philosophy. Uh, in the notes, you have an interesting word right at the top here: ideology.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
Well, I mean, that is a sort of definition, but I kind of went to the history. Now, so I'll read it. Ideology has been in use in English since the end of the 18th century and is one of the few words whose coiner we can identify. The French writer A.L. de Tracy proposed it as a term to designate the science of ideas. And in that sense, the word was quickly borrowed into English, though ideology originated as a serious philosophical term. Within a few decades, it took on connotations of impracticality, thanks to Napoleon, who used it in a derisive manner. Such connotations are still present in some contexts, but the word today is largely used neutrally, most often to refer to a systematic body of concepts, and essentially to the set of ideas and beliefs held by a particular group or political party. Well, so it's kind of a neutral word, but it can be used negatively. Those guys are making red pill an ideology. Well, that's intended to be negative, but you know what? I have to actually agree that we are making red pill an ideology. Because it does refer, red pill is a systematic body of concepts and the set of ideas and beliefs held by a particular group. Yeah, the red pill group.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Rollo says it's not an ideology. It's a praxeology. I don't know. It seems kind of like an ideology. But before, I don't want this cut up because okay, just because you have an ideology does not mean you don't have another ideology which is not superior. So if you have a Christian ideology and a red pill ideology, and you make your red pill ideology subservient or lesser, secondary to your Christian ideology, does that make your secondary ideology bad? I mean,
Well,
economist has economical ideology. He knows how the business world works. But if he's Christian, that is subservient or submissive or underneath his Christian ideology. Isn't that how everybody works?
well, the problem is that no, if we go back to the original definition of ideology as the science of ideas, it is not possible in this modern life to have a single ideology, a single science of ideas. It simply isn't enough to interact with the world. Um, okay, let's say I'm a Christian, which I am. I grew up Christian. I believe in all of what the Bible teaches. Okay, but I'm also an engineer. Well, I cannot go to the Bible to answer a question about how to write a recursive CTE in a SQL for a database. This construct is a concept in programming. Okay, the Bible's not going to tell me how to do it. I have to go somewhere else for that idea. And I could do this about any aspect of life. There are groups of ideas for which you're now maybe I use my Christian ideology to say, well, I don't want to work for these guys because I don't agree with what they're doing. And I think that, you know, my ideology conflicts from them. Let's say that I was being offered a job to go work at the hub, if y'all catch my drift, right?
Okay.
Well, my Christian ideology would have to say, no, I'm not going to go work there. And Nick, I think you would agree that that's a valid
No,
use.
yeah. I mean, you see that on some of these like these F and whatever. They try to say they can be an OnlyFans thing and a Christian, faithful Christian at the same time.
Hmm.
He can't do that.
Right. But
But
go ahead, Steve.
but Andrew Wilson has a Christian ideology,
Hmm.
and he goes on those streams dealing with OnlyFans and 304s.
Yeah.
Should he be on there as a Christian? Because hey, they have people on there who have a different ideology. It doesn't seem to
He
be a
can
problem.
just be careful.
He can hold
Just be
his
careful.
ideology and
Yep.
go and deal with people with a
Yep.
different ideology.
He
And
can.
he's not promoting their ideology. He's actually pushing back against that. So can
Yep.
we have a Christian ideology and go in the red pill arena and push back against some of their ideas or propose our own? Get
Yeah.
along with them as best we can, promote our ideas. And okay, they give
Nice.
me respect for my ideas. I give them
Mhm.
respect for their viewpoint. I'm not here to
Right.
change them. And remember, when you're doing YouTube, whoever you're on there with, they're not you're not trying to change them. You're trying to promote ideas for the people who are watching. I mean, we have tens of viewers. And some people have hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of viewers. So they're trying to sway their thousands of viewers.
That's fine.
Well, okay, Nick, something else. And you might be able to dig up the Bible verse quicker than I can, but aren't Christians called to go out into the world? Aren't they and engage with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But not to
Well,
be of the world, not to
right.
be taken over, not to be taken captive by empty philosophy, and not to be fall in love with the world and its lust thereof. You know.
Well, okay. So isn't that kind of what Andrew's doing on whatever?
Yeah.
He's going out
Definitely.
there. He's engaging with different ideologies. I would certainly call OnlyFans an ideology. Um, and he goes out there and he engaged with them but he's not engaging with them to promote them. He's sorry. He's engaging to sort of to change their minds, but also the minds of any women who happen to be viewing, thinking about OnlyFans and pointing out the flaws with what they're doing. So some ideologies are just bodies of knowledge, right? So your chemistry is science of ideas, and they're bodies of knowledge. Okay. Some
Sometimes they
ideologies are
overlap.
so
Sometimes
yes,
they overlap.
but in
Uh,
in all cases, the Christian ideology can sit above those subservient ideologies, and they can inform which of those ideologies you participate in or how you use them. I'm thinking of Christian biologists here.
Here's a real interesting fact. So the university system, Steve probably knows this as a Catholic, especially the university system, right? The medieval university system that they were called universities because they had the universal knowledge of God's creation, and the chief of all the sciences was theology.
Theology.
Yeah,
I mean, that was the purpose
yeah,
for establishment. Princeton and Harvard were theological seminaries before,
Mhm.
well, primarily before they became universities.
Yep. It's because the chief of the science is theology, which is where all of them are united, but which also gives the foundation for the rest and informs the rest.
So, Andrew got some pushback from going on. I don't remember what the guy's name. He did a debate with him who was criticizing Andrew for going on those shows and not correcting them on everything and not chewing Brian's ass for correcting the hose and whatnot. And it was silly. As a Christian, you can't go into those spaces. Why
Yeah, you
not?
should be careful. Yeah, you should be careful. You should be wise in how
Okay,
you
well,
enter that. But can
but
you not go in? No, I wouldn't say that. No. Yeah.
but Andrew defended himself against that.
Yeah.
Says, yeah, okay, I'm putting the ideas out there. So, as Christian men, should we not be in the red pill? Should we not be in this sphere? Because, bad men live here.
Counter question: Are we trying to claim that Puritanism here? Like you can only be pure if you do not interact with the impure.
I mean, sure, bad company can corrupt good morals, but then you'll never be able to interact with anybody
Well,
besides. And then you'll have an increasingly smaller circle. So that's actually what happened to some of the Puritans when they came over. They were so pure they separated some another term for that would be brownists in some respects. Puritan is kind of a broader term, but the idea they wanted to be pure and set apart. They came to the New England, and some of the ministers kept separating. That it was only them and their family.
so you've got no one to talk to, and you end up with a highly fractionated church. Does this sound familiar to anybody in the church today with our
Yeah.
highly fractionated church?
Mm-hmm.
Purity tests are not philosophy. They're not even really ideology. A purity test is just a way to say, I insert your name here, have a better, more pure understanding of insert religious belief here than you do. I am more pure than you. And when people do that, I think it is fundamentally corrosive to the church because Satan knows two things. He knows that there is no pure human on this planet. And he knows that our pride and egos we desire to be seen as more pure than the next guy. You have any disagreement with that, Nick?
No, so it's real interesting. It's very tricky because God is holy, and so we should be holy in ourselves. But it can take on so quickly does that holiness turn into a hubris, which divides you and also leads you to a fall.
Well,
I completely agree.
this is illustrated by the story Jesus told in the Bible, where the rich man went into the temple and stood so as he was dropping the money in, everybody could see how much he dropped in.
Okay.
Purity. Oh, look how holy I am. And then the widow went up there and she sheltered what she was putting in there from anybody's eyes. And what did she put in? The widow's mite. Such a trivial amount. But the rich man wanted to be seen for his generosity. That's that's okay. It's not the same as purity, but the purity people want to be seen. Look how pure I am. Look how holy I am. Look how Christian I am. It's kind of it's vanity.
Steve, vanity is one of the 7 deadlies, if I remember correctly,
Right,
right?
we're going to talk about that on Wednesday. It's going to be one of the
Well,
things that
actually, I
a little
think
bit.
it's pride.
Pride. Okay.
Pride, vanity
Yeah.
is a subset of pride.
No.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I was not raised Catholic. I don't have any Catholic.
Well, hey, it's just shorthand.
Yeah, true.
Just you know what? I can't even. Well, I can say I can probably get the 7 cardinal virtues: faith, hope, love. Well, faith, hope, charity, prudence, temperance, justice, fortitude.
See, I like those.
Okay, you know what? Learn those. You don't have to be Catholic to learn those.
Oh.
Because
No.
for hundreds of years, those were they were listed. Okay, they make sense. Temperance. Okay, you got to balance out how you're going to interact with people. Prudence. Okay, what I'm doing going to serve a purpose? For me, no, I have to actually think before I act. Justice. Yeah, do I just want to win people to my side, or should I want justice? And fortitude. Am I going to knuckle under when times get tough? Or am I going to stick to my principles and follow through? So, yeah, okay. Remember, in the past, most of history, people were not literate. And so they couldn't read the Bible. Well, first of all, it was too damn expensive. It had to be handwritten. And then even when it became printed, okay, now it's more accessible, but it still cost a lot of money. People didn't
It's
have that
probably
much
not in your
money.
language, and it's not in your language.
And so, yeah, okay, they couldn't have that Bible and carry it around and look things up. No, they
Right?
counted on their memory. And so these things were taught to people. And then, you know what? Nick and I have a difference on iconography. But with an illiterate people, they can walk into a church in the stained glass window and say, wow, look at this. Here's this story. Here's this Bible story. This is what happened here. And they could teach their children, and it would have symbols of different things to help them remember and tell the story. Because people had to live differently before they were literate and had written word that they could own themselves. It just wasn't
Just reality.
available.
That's just
It's just
reality.
reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Steve,
you know what?
ahead.
Choose what you want to believe, but actually think about the historical context of why why these things happen.
Okay, well, I want to loop back to fortitude because I think that gets to something that we also see in the sophistry of social media, and that is minor disagreements have become points of rupture. And to my understanding of the term fortitude, there's a little bit of grit in it. There's a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? It- there's a little bit of masculinity in it of just saying, you know what? No, I'm not gonna lose my temper. That's your temperance. But I'm going to stick with this and I'm going to engage with this fight. So I'm going to temper and I'm going to stick with it. And we are going to come to some sort of maybe not an agreement, but we're going to sit down and we're going to hash this out without getting our emotions involved. And I think that particularly social media has stripped us of that in its ever present push to engage our emotions.
I mean, you can see that to the point where you try to destroy a person instead of the argument, and you make blood sport off of that.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that going on a couple weeks ago, wasn't there? My
Yeah,
goodness.
just but it
And
also
now,
shows a society raised on social media instead of, learning things like logic and philosophy, then later learning rhetoric.
Well, wasn't okay. Now, here's another aside. Now we laugh when someone says, "Oh, I got a liberal arts education." Ah, ha, ha. What a worthless degree. Well, it might be now. I'm not disagreeing with that. But originally, a liberal arts degree included some theology, some philosophy, some of the masters. It taught you how to think. It wasn't a vocational degree to teach you how to do business. It was to educate your brain. And it wasn't liberal as in Democrat,
Okay.
leftist arts. It was liberal as in, yeah, we're trying to form this person into a well-rounded individual with a good command of knowledge, of history and theology, because God was important, and rhetoric and knowledge and logic, because these will be the future leaders in our world. And we want a well balanced, well educated man. Oh, well, that's not what it means now.
no, if you look at the required classes on a liberal arts degree today, there is no theology, there is no philosophy or logic. There is women's studies, I believe, is required now at some colleges, though.
Yeah, and you know what? You could not get a liberal arts degree 150 years ago without learning Latin.
Yeah, no one wants to do that. Not even
I
me.
love Latin's fun. Latin's fun. I need to brush up on it, but yeah, it's fun. It also trains your mind how to think as well, learning Latin.
Well, learning any second language can and has been shown to improve your ability to think in any language, in any format of language.
Because you're thinking this word modifies this word and is building this thought.
Correct. Language is the construct of how you think. And it's part of the reason that, because I think Steve was talking about phonics two episodes ago, or maybe it was last Wednesday. But how you speak absolutely molds how your brain interacts with ideas. One of the things I love about my career is that I have been forced to think in a very logical, structured manner because the languages I use to express my ideas are far more limited than, say, English or French or any of the spoken languages. So I have to take my idea and distill it down using the logical constructs that I've been given to achieve an end goal.
Well, I heard a talk on language by I guess he was a white guy, and I don't know if this is true, but it kind of illustrates my point. Talking about, I don't know if it was the Zulus or something, comparing the English to the Zulu language. And so, and I'm just pulling this out of my ass, basically. The concept of a coconut is up a tree. Well, think about it. Okay. Their word for up means at the top. So if their language does not have a word or a modifier for halfway up, you can't communicate that concept that no, it's not at the top, it's only halfway. Now, okay, if they didn't need that concept in their civilization, you can't communicate that thought to them because they have no ability to comprehend it. Now, this might be a wrong illustration, but the point still exists. If you don't have words to convey the concepts that you're trying to say, the people can't get the concept because there's no container that you can pass that contains this concept. And therefore, they can't even fathom the concept with no container.
You know, Steve, I think
Words
you just
are a container.
described. I think you just described why we're so dry.
Oh, why?
Well,
Oh, because we use lots of words that have specific meaning. Look,
oh,
we don't. Go ahead.
you know what's really talking about language and confusion. Who does not truth bring unification of confusion? I'm going in a theological matter here. So in the beginning was the
Okay.
Logos, right? Right. And then they rebelled against the Logos, and the Logos scattered them, and they were brought to confusion and disorder. Well, the Logos came, he was incarnate, he was raised and ascended on the throne, and he poured out the Spirit to create a unification. Remember when they had people at Pentecost, all the tribes, tongues, nations,
Mhm. Yes.
and they all heard him speaking the same message, the same truth, the same Logos in their own languages.
Hmm.
I think that's true. But okay, for those that are not familiar with what Nick just said, the Logos refers to the beginning of the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. Okay, Logos, the word is actually Logos in Greek, and it has a great meaning. So, in the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos was God, and the Logos was with God. So, when Nick used the word Logos, he meant Jesus Christ, the second person of the Trinity.
Absolutely.
If we don't catch this and stop and explain it,
Oh,
I fear some people are not going to be able to understand us. Damn, those guys are dry.
We're working on it, guys. We promise. We promise.
see, the problem is all three of us understand each other where we're coming from, and sometimes we're not thinking about where our audience is, and probably some tracking right along with us. Some might not be very Christian. Some are Christian, but maybe not, theologically trained or philosophically trained. So we got to realize there's a spectrum there of where people are at and what language they're used to. So
Maybe we should rebrand our channel. Two engineers and a preacher.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would go over any better. Well, so the reason I bring this up is because the Sophists were wordsmiths, but they lacked the logic to go along with the words they were smithing. Or if they had started with it, they got away from it because the money was not in the logic, the money was not in the philosophy, the money was in teaching people how to orate such that people would join them. And this is why when and we say this almost every stream, we're not here for the subs, we're not here for the money. We all have jobs elsewhere because we're not interested in trying to tell you how to think, trying to get you to come to us and pay us money. We're here to give you things to think about, ideas logic patterns, tools of analysis. Oh my, I lost them all. Oh no.
I just moved my camera.
Oh,
No,
I'll
I'm
be
just
back.
So yeah, we
So
want people to think.
and I would go so far as to say we would welcome somebody to challenge us. However, if you challenge us, we do not accept appeals to authority. We do not accept appeals to your age. I have met 50-year-olds with the wisdom of 5-year-olds and 5-year-olds with the wisdom of 50-year-olds. I have not found age. Age is somewhat correlated with wisdom in that you have more opportunity to become wise, but that doesn't mean you've taken those ideas or taken that opportunity. We are going to put you through a ringer, and I'm not saying that we're perfect at it, but we're not going to. Yeah, we also don't accept ad hominem attacks. That's another thing. I just saw that in the comments. If you come at us attacking who we are as people, let's say you're somebody who knows us and knows a little bit of our story, or you've listened to us and you've decided that like, hey, all three of us are divorced, and somehow that is a failing of us. Well, we might address that, but we do not consider that a valid attack on our ideas because it's an attack on us, not the idea. We're here for the ideas. And I don't know that we're all that concerned about the personality behind the idea. If it's an idea with a flaw, we're going to come for it. We're going to press on it. I can tell you right now that next week I get to pull up one of the things that I think probably pissed me off most this year, and that was Rollo's "Guys Who Don't Fuck" article. We're gonna take a look into that, and then we're also gonna take a look into Tim Pool and Daily Wire, and so this week we spent a lot of time doing definitions so that you guys understand where we're coming from, how we're approaching things, how these sophists that we are contending with approach things. And next week is going to be a whole bunch of example. And I think probably a little bit of the takeaway that we hope from next week is that sophistry by itself is weak because you can be on two sides. You can be opposed to somebody else and use the exact same argument they're using. Because in sophistry, it is the oratory that matters, not the quality of the idea.
That's correct. But it's also, yeah, sophistries to win the battle, not necessarily the argument.
Right.
To win over the crowds, to win over the applause, to condemn somebody, and turn a blind eye to the truth.
So next week we're going to pit Rollo versus Tim Pool, even though those two they're not together when we do this. But the point is to show that they are both making the same argument from different sides, and they both suffer from the same logic flaw.
Yeah, if you think we're doing this stream just for other people, no, that's not true. When the three of us come together, we have to prepare something. And then we get our idea critiqued and we talk about it. And I have learned so much from these two other guys and from my prep work. And okay, if I'm going to bring something forward, it's going to be sound or at least well thought out. And then I'll get pushback and I'll get correction if I'm wrong. Or if I need to redirect a little bit. And I enjoy that.
I enjoy it
Well,
too.
we enjoy critiquing, we enjoy thinking through things, and I remember one of the times, I think, I don't know if Steve was there yet, but I think Plutarch was listening in, is when, Glenn asked me to lead this, Bible study on the book of, what was it? The Song of Solomon. And I
Yes.
had this preconceived concept of how to interpret it. But the more I studied it, the more I did my prep work, I had to throw all that out. And I came to kind of a more historic view on the text, and completely different than what was taught to me in seminary, but it was a great exercise.
Well, Nick and Steve, you can confirm this, but this topic, and this idea of Rollo versus, I was originally excuse me, going to use Daily Wire, but as I said, Tim Pool dropped an absolute gem of an example on us on Friday. I have been talking about this idea since episode 4. So,
You're
I
ready.
yeah, and well, but I think what I'm trying to get at is, Nick, you're saying, I was studying this thing and I had to, completely approach it. Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of what's happened with this argument, and that I'll be making next week. I did not start where I ended up at all.
Isn't
I think
that
it's
fun?
better. I love it. And I think it's a better argument for going through that effort. But
Yeah.
there was a lot of time studying, there's a lot of time thinking, there was a lot of time having conversations with other people I trust who are not in this space, like my dad, for one, who is a very intelligent man. And I would love to get him on one of these streams one of these days, but he has a specific list of things he likes to talk about, and we're busy dealing with other stuff that's not really his speed. Uh, Steve, you would love him. He's a mechanical engineer as well. Um,
Yeah.
so
I would.
but
It,
go ahead.
it takes a while to come up with an idea, a kernel of a thought. And I think there's something here, but I don't quite understand, and I can't articulate it. I can't explain it. I need to bounce this idea around, get some reflection from some other guys. I need to observe the world. I need to do some study. And then you can actually develop the idea and refine it in your own mind. And until you can explain that idea to someone else, you really don't understand it very well yourself.
Absolutely. The other thing I would say, folks out there, is every time you go through one of these cycles of sussing out an idea and attacking it and improving it, you get better at it. You get quicker at it. You start to see the flaws sooner. You can correct. It's like any other muscle in your body. The more you train it, the better it works. So we are, as I've said a couple times now, we're not here to tell you what to think, but we are here to give you some things to think about. And if anyone out on there in the YouTubeverse knows the guy I stole that from, hats off. I appreciate you. But that's the argument for next week is, I mean, I could almost say that I really started on this argument way back when I first read Rollo's article, but I really did not have a handle on the flaw with the argument until a couple weeks ago when we started talking about this. So it's sometimes
Well,
this stuff takes a
are
while.
you saying Rollo is wrong? Or are you just saying his argument has a flaw?
Oh, did I did well? Okay, I got to check myself. Was I careful enough in my language selection there?
Oh, yeah, you did a much better job than I did.
Okay, because there's I think one of the things that happens on social media is when we say somebody's wrong, we tend to assume that we mean that the person saying it means that they're wrong about everything. No, Rollo is not wrong about everything, but there is a
No.
weakness in the argument that he makes, and
Okay,
maybe
you
it,
you have a lot of respect for Rollo and the work that he's done,
correct.
but doesn't mean he is on omnipotent
Omniscient.
or not omniscient.
All-knowing?
Yeah, that's the one.
Well,
All knowing.
yeah. Or
So yeah,
inerrant?
okay. Well,
Or yeah.
every
Yeah.
every one of us throws out ideas, and our ideas are built upon by other men. And they pick at our ideas and they discard some things and they refine them and they take them and do something else with them and build more. That's what we're doing. We're not, you know, Plutarch is not disrespecting Rollo. He's just building upon what Rollo did and saying, yeah, there's a flaw here. At least in our Christian ideology, there's a flaw.
Well, actually, I personally think that we don't even need to go down the Christian ideology path. And you guys have my show notes for this. I think the flaw is one of simple, unsound logic.
Hey, that's even better.
There you
Well,
go.
it certainly makes it easier to say, well, it's really not an attack of Christianity. And the this is another point about sophists versus philosophy. When you're attacking an idea, the ad hominems not only become obvious, but they become irrelevant, right? Because if let's say Rollo disagrees with me, but his response is, "Well, you just disagree with me because you're a Christian." Well,
Has
no,
nothing to do with it. It has nothing
right.
to do with it.
The flaw in the argument is not a flaw of morality; it's a flaw of, really, in this case, how he states his argument. So, and what a philosopher will do is they will say, "Okay, you made this mistake here," and they will say, "Oh, well, would you like to correct that?" Now, what I will say is sometimes a flaw can be so fatal to an argument that that flaw means that you have to completely reconstruct or throw out the argument. That happens in building sometimes. You get a bad batch of concrete in the foundation, it crumbles too easy. Guess what? Got to start over. And it is by doing that that we build better arguments, that we make it harder for those who do not like us to criticize us.
So you're also saying that you don't need to pull out your Bible and thump on the cover and say, "Oh, this verse, this verse, this verse," to refute someone's argument. You're
I
still
mean, you
doing God's
can.
work if you use logic and reason to get at the truth. That's just as permissible. Sometimes it's more effective. You
Right.
don't have to. You can use the Bible, sure,
Yep.
but it might be more effective to use logic and reason. And that's not a problem with using that to debate an idea or a concept. And you can actually support Christianity without even referring to Christian arguments.
Question to the audience. How often when Andrew's debating on whatever, how often does he pull out the Bible? He does, on occasion, pull out the Bible. He just tries not to, because it's better to defeat the logic or illogic of the argument. Because the person can always come back and say, "Oh, well, you're just saying that because you're a Christian." Again, it's not to say that Christian arguments are bad. And I have watched Andrew do this on whatever. When a woman brings a purported Christian argument, he will happily rip out the Bible and start tearing that argument apart. But when you're debating, you go for the tools that are most effective. And sophistry is the least effective tool out there. It just is.
That's be logical. Think critically. Understand your opponent's argument and see where the flaw is. Pick it apart.
But
Man,
specifically
we
attack
are
the
so
argument.
dry tonight.
Oh man,
We're
horribly
not
dry.
entertaining anybody.
No, that's okay.
They're actually going to have to think and struggle to get through this. But if they really are interested in refining their thought and learning better how to think, well, there might be some gems in here.
Well, that's why next week we're going to go through a specific example of this. I think that's so you've got all the ideas, you've got the background for it. I've kind of teed up what we're going to be looking at next week. If you guys have access to Rollo's article, I strongly recommend going and reading it. If anybody in the chat thinks they can or thinks they found the flaw, I'd love to see it. Because that would tell us that you are thinking about the ideas, that you are truly engaged with the concept of critical analysis. So that's what we're going to do. The Tim Pool video is going to be used to show how sophistry plays into poor argumentation. And so then so next week you get an example of at least how I did it, and I don't claim to be some sort of credentialed expert on how to do this, but I have a career of thinking logically. It's what I've done for a living. Doesn't mean I'm perfect, but you guys can see how I did it and how I got to where I got to. So that'll be next Monday.
And tomorrow we'll be doing.
You mean Wednesday?
Oh no, yeah, yeah. That's yeah. I was incorrect. Okay, so Wednesday, not tomorrow. Wednesday, we'll be talking about how to destroy a man, and it's not just how a woman can destroy a man, but it's also how a man can destroy himself.
Oof.
So it'd be interesting. Just so in a way, it's talking about sins and it's talking about morality. There's probably a little red pill in there too, but it'd be a helpful guide just to keep a man on track and to remind him how to live to accomplish his goals in life and not to get wrecked by himself or others.
Hey, guess what? You know what that sounds like?
What's that sound like?
Dry.
Dry? That's okay.
All right. Well, any final thoughts? Nope. All right. Well, we will see you all on Wednesday and tune in next week for the show portion of this little show and tell that we've been doing. And we'll see you around.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye.